Hi, my name is Izzy Broker. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and subsequently moved to Staten Island, New York, where I lived for about 25 years. I made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael from Staten Island and live in Alon Shvut, located in Gush, which is the biblical heartland of Eretz Yisrael. I truly believe that Alon Shvut is not only one of the most beautiful places in all of Israel, but probably one of the most beautiful places on earth. I hope that one day you will come visit and you will see for yourself how beautiful it really is. In the Sefer, Eretz Yisrael in the Parsha by Rabbi Moshe Lichtman, he quotes Rabbi Meir Yechiel of Ostrovsa, who points out that the very first mitzvah given to the Jewish people is Lech ma'artzecha, given to Avram Avinu, who was the first Jew. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, the author of the Kuzari, wonders why that should be the case. Out of all the mitzvahs of the Torah, why should Lech Lecha have been chosen to be the very first mitzvah? And he points out that Hashem was telling Avram Avinu that despite all the wonderful things that he was doing outside of Eretz Yisrael, all the people that he was inspiring to God and to monotheism, and all the kindness that he was teaching the world, all of it was not complete without his living in Israel. If Avram Avinu truly wanted to reach spiritual perfection, the only place that he could reach it would be in Eretz Yisrael. Chazal teach us, Maisa Avos Siman Lebanim, that the deeds of our forefathers are signposts for their children. The message that God was giving Avram Avinu was not just for him, but it was for all of his descendants, meaning me and you. That message is that if we want to reach perfection, then the place to do it is only here in Eretz Yisrael. It's always troubled me why so many otherwise good Jews living all over the world have chosen to continue to live outside of Israel and not made their home here. And I've questioned a lot of these people. I get all kinds of different reasons. Some of them which in my mind are valid, and many of which I believe are not valid. I hope that by producing this video, I will educate people to the importance of the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, to the central role that it plays in our religion and in our lives. And I hope that by people viewing this video, they will sincerely consider uprooting themselves the way Avram Avinu did and come to Eretz Yisrael. It's a lot easier today than it was in Avram Avinu's time. There was no nefesh b'nefesh, there was no help from the government, and people know what Eretz Yisrael looks like before they come. Avram Avinu didn't know any of that. He simply picked himself up and he went to the land that Hashem told him to go to. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.
Open my lips to sing your praise, my heart to feel the joy. Let me have the gift for which I'm yearning, another night in Israel.
I grew up in Queens, New York, a couple blocks away from my grandparents. My grandparents left Europe right before World War II and escaped and traveled to Hartford, Connecticut. From Hartford, Connecticut, then they came to Forest Hills and lived near us. And so I visited my grandparents often in my childhood. I remember one particular time when I went to my grandmother's house. And I came in turn, usually when her grandson, I think I was maybe 10 years old, usually when I walked in, she greeted me with great joy, with smile, usually, of course, with a cookie, maybe some cake. But this day was a little different. This day, I walked into her home, and she was sitting in her chair, and she was sad. She was thoughtful, she was reflective, and it was different, it was unusual. And And I asked her, I said, Grandma, what's wrong? What's going on? And she said to me something, it just probably slipped out. It wasn't something you really say to a 10-year-old, but it's something that stayed with me for the rest of my life. She said to me, when we left Europe, we went the wrong direction. We traveled west. We came to America. But we should have traveled east. We should have gone to Israel. It's a thought that my grandmother mentioned to me when I was just a young boy that stayed with me and that fueled in me a sense of Israel being the place for the Jewish people, of Israel being our home. And it's this sense, I think, that also runs throughout the parsha that we're about to read this Shabbat, Parshat Lech Lecha. In the middle of the parsha, Hashem says to Abraham, he introduces himself before the Brit Ben Habtarim, and he says, Ani Hashem asher hotzeticha me'or kasdim, l'teit lecha et ha'aretz hazot l'rishta. I am Hashem, who took you out of Or Kasdim. And our commentators all wonder, what exactly does this pasuk mean? Because in truth, if we think about it, where was Abraham? Where was Abraham when he received his command of Lech Lecha? The simple reading of the psukim is that Abraham was in Haran. Abraham was already in Haran, and it was in Haran where Abraham received the message of Lech Lecha, and that moved him to go to Israel. So what does Hashem mean when he says, Ani Hashem, asher tzeticha me'or kasdim, that I took you out of Or Kasdim, which is a place earlier in Abraham's history, where Abraham was, perhaps, when he was a younger man. And there are many different approaches that the commentaries offer to suggest ways of explaining the seeming discrepancy in the pasuk. But I'd like to suggest a specific approach that ties Abraham to his father. See, at the end of Parshat Noach, we're told that Vayikach terach et Abraham beno v'tzlot ben Haran ben beno v'tzarai kalato eshet Abraham beno v'yitz'u itam me'or kasdim lalechet arza Canaan. That Terach, Avram's father, actually took Abraham and Sarai and Lot, and he left Or Kasdim to go to Eretz Canaan, to go to the land that we know now, of course, as Israel. V'yavo ad Haran v'yeshvu sham, and then he came to Haran and he stopped there. For some reason, Terach didn't complete the journey. He intended to go to Israel. In fact, Chazal tell us that Terach, at the end of his life, perhaps did tshuva, which may be tied to this pasuk, that Terach intended to actually get to Israel. But he didn't make it. He stopped at Haran. Abraham picked up, in a sense, where Terach left off, and he continued the journey, and he made it to Israel. And that's why when Hashem says, Ani Hashem, asher hotzeticha me'or kasdim, I am the God that took you out of Or Kasdim, what Hashem is saying and signaling to Abraham, that it's not just your journey. Although you are the one who actually made it to Israel, when I think of your journey, I don't just think of you from Haran. I think of the generation before you. I think of the generation from Or Kasdim. I think of Terach too. I think about the Jews that wanted to get to Israel, that weren't able to get to Israel. They too are part of this journey. They too are part of this great transition from Chutz La'aretz to the Promised Land. There are a lot of reasons why one would, of course, want to make Aliyah. I'm certainly not one of the Olim or the Rabbanim who think that every Jew has to live in Israel and it's the only place for Jews to live. I think there's wonderful work. There's wonderful things to do in Chutz La'aretz as well, and important things for Jews to do in Chutz La'aretz too. And there are reasons also to stay in Chutz La'aretz. I think that's 100% true. But, of course, there's also a lot of reasons to make Aliyah. And there's wonderful, special, miuchad things that only happen here. For example, just living in a Jewish country, just being part of participating in a public square that's filled with your traditions and with your symbols and with your holidays. Just walking into a store on Chol HaMoed and being greeted with Chag Sameach. When the calendar runs according to your tradition, the sense of living a full Jewish life, surrounded by all of the Jewish symbols, surrounded by Judaism all throughout the country. And more than just the Judaism, it's the Jewish people. Living in a place where you're surrounded by your Jewish family. Just the other day, I was driving in Yerushalayim, and I got lost. and I didn't know where to go. So I pulled over. There was a guy standing on the street, and I said to him, can you give me the directions to the place that I was going? And he said, if you want me to help you, I could help you. I could get in, I could show you the way. He gets in my car, and he shows me the way to get to where I'm going, and I'm driving him with me, and he gets a call. And I overhear the call, and a guy says to him, "Hey, Vata, where are you?" And he explained to him that he's helping this guy, find his way to, and I thought that I was driving him and we were going in the same direction, and I was helping him out, but I wasn't. He had to be somewhere else. He got in my car and helped me to go out of his way, just because I asked him for help. My wife was driving into the Malcha Mall a couple of years ago, and the security guard says to her, he goes, "Do you see that you have a puncture?" A puncture is a flat tire. So she says she didn't know. So he asked her to pull over. He said, "Do you have the tools to fix it?" So she didn't really know what to do. So he goes to the trunk, picks up the trunk, takes out the tools. He lifts up the car. He changes the tire, puts in the new tire, puts down the car. And my wife was so grateful and said to me, "Is there something? Can I give you money? Can I pay? Can I just to show my appreciation?" And the security guard looked like he was offended. He's like, "Lo, ani lo lakachet kesef lazor et achoti." I don't take money to help my sister. The sense of living in a Jewish country, surrounded by Judaism, surrounded by the Jewish people who are your family. You can't describe that feeling, the feeling of what it means. And it's not just the living in the present, but it's being part of the Jewish future. We're building the Jewish state right now. It's a young country. There are many needs. And of course, one could do many things for the Jewish state outside of Israel too, and that's also important. But there's something different when everything that you do, the act of raising your children, the act of buying milk in a store, everything you do contributes to the economy, contributes to the state, participates in the building and the future of the Jewish state. This is a special time. It's a special time to be in Israel. It's a special time for our present, and it's a special time where we're building for the future. It's not just about the present and the future, it's also about the past. It's about being part of Jewish history. It's about being part of the Jewish journey. Of course, we know, as is written all throughout the Tanakh, that Israel is the home of the Jewish people. It's where we were brought to by Hashem. It's where Hashem promised that He'll give to our forefathers, to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's where we belong. But then we were punished. We were exiled. We were sent out of our land. And every generation subsequently just dreamed. They dreamed of returning home, of returning to Israel. When my grandmother expressed her wish or her sadness that she went west instead of east, she wasn't just talking about herself. She was talking about the tikvah, she was talking about the hopes and the dreams of her parents, and her parents before them, and their parents before them. All of her ancestors, all the generations that lived throughout Europe, throughout the diaspora, throughout the galut, all the generations who just dreamed of the opportunity to return back to Israel, to return home. And it was that thought, it was that sense that I got from my grandmother that I thought about specifically when I was on the plane, the Nefesh B'Nefesh flight, when I was making my own Aliyah. Because when I left that plane, when I stepped off those stairs as a Toshav, a Medinat Yisrael, and I walked on this land, I thought to myself that I am not coming alone, but I am bringing my grandmother with me. And I am bringing her parents and her parents before. Just like Hashem said to Abraham, Ani Hashem she'etzeticha me'or kasdim. When I think of your journey, Abraham, I don't just think of you. I think of the generations before you too, who just dreamed and wished that they could make it into this land. They're all part of this journey. And that is true about building Medinat Yisrael today. It's not just us. It's not just those olim, it's not the toshavim. It's everyone of all the past generations. It's all of our journeys. It's all of Jewish history that's being gathered together here in this holiest of lands as we rebuild the concept of the Jewish state. Ani Hashem, she'etzeticha me'or kasdim. Hashem who took us out of Or Kasdim is the Hashem who took us out of Europe, took us out of America, took us out of all the cross of the eastern lands, took us out and brought us back to the promised land, brought us back to Israel. We were once sent out of our home, but we have returned home. And this time, Bezrat Hashem, we are here to stay.
Desert flowers blooming in the spring, the grapes upon the vine.
Shalom. My name is Rabbi Alan Haber, and about 15 years ago, I had the privilege of making Aliyah from Monsey, New York, to the town of Alon Shvut in Gush Etzion, which is right up here on the hill behind me. You know, when I lived in Monsey, I had a wonderful Jewish community. A lot of Torah, a lot of Chesed. And here in Alon Shvut, I also have the privilege of living in a wonderful community with a lot of Torah and a lot of Chesed. But there's a fundamental difference. Because here in Eretz Yisrael, life is on a completely different plane of existence. Here in the land of Israel, everything you do, the most mundane daily acts of your life, connect you with your past and with your future, with our past and our future. I'm standing here right beneath my town on an ancient road called Derech HaAvot. This little dirt path behind me was the road that led from the south of the country, from Hebron, straight to Yerushalayim. In the time of the second Beit HaMikdash, at least, our ancestors walked on this road 3 times a year when they went to the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. If you go down the road to the main intersection, Somet Gush Etzion, you'll see road signs, modern road signs. And it'll tell you that if you make a right turn and go south, you'll get to Hebron, Kiryat Arba, Beersheva. And it says that if you make a left and go north, you'll get to Beit Lechem and Yerushalayim. Thousands of years ago, Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov walked on this road, and they saw that exact same road sign. The lettering wasn't as modern, and the distances were probably in cubits and not in kilometers, but it was the same sign on the same road. So living here, you're living in your past, but you're also living in the future. When I stand in shul and I look around, I see that I'm standing with Jews from every continent on earth. 30 or 40 different countries are represented in this little town. Jews from North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. And sometimes I stand in shul and I look around at my neighbors and I open up a chumash. For example, to Dvarim Perek Lamed. And I read these words. V'haya ki yavo alecha kol hadvarim ha'ele habracha ve'aklala asher natati lefanecha v'hashevota el levavecha b'chol hagoyim asher hidichacha Hashem Elokecha shama. The Torah says at the end of time, after all of the travails of Jewish history, after all of the suffering and pain and exile, a day is going to come when v'hashevota el levavecha, something's going to stir inside of you while you're still in exile on the 4 corners of the earth. B'chol hagoyim asher hidichacha Hashem Elokecha shama. And the Torah promises, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha. There'll be a process of rebirth, of rejuvenation, of returning to Hashem. And then, V'shav Hashem Elokecha et shvutcha v'richamecha. Hashem will return you. V'shav v'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher hefitzcha Hashem Elokecha shama. The Torah tells us that the day will come when God will gather us from all the nations, wherever we are, from as far as He has scattered us. It doesn't matter how far away you've been scattered. If you're from Melbourne, if you're from New Zealand, if you're from Johannesburg, if you're from Oslo, if you're from Los Angeles, New York, Moscow. Misham, from there, Yikabetzcha Hashem Elokecha, Umisham Yikachecha. He'll find you there, Hashem, and He'll bring you back. Ve'heviacha Hashem Elokecha el haaretz asher yarshu avotecha virishta. When I stand in shul and I read these words and I look around, I realize I'm not reading these words, I'm living these words. I'm standing in a room with Jews from every corner of earth who've been gathered together and brought back El Haaretz Asher Yarshu Avotecha. And we're standing right on top of the very land on which our ancestors walked. Virishta. We walk outside, there's an Israeli flag flying there. It's our flag. We've inherited the land again. We're living in this prophecy. We're living in the Nevuah. So we're living in the past. We're building the future. We're living in the future. The redemption is happening, and I have the privilege of not reading about it, not waiting for it, not dreaming about it, but being a part of it. And when I go about my everyday life, I get up in the morning, I send my kids off to school, I go to the grocery store and pick up a bottle of milk, get in my car, go to work. I did all those things in Muncie too. But here, when I do that, I'm not only educating my children, supporting my family, educating my students. I was able to privilege to do all those things in Chutz La'aretz, and I'm doing them all here. But I'm also, just by walking the land, just by living my life, I have the privilege of being part of the redemption. There's nothing like it. The founders of modern Gush Etzion who came here to these towns, behind me you see Efrat, you see Neve Daniel, Elazar, Rosh Tzurim. The founders of this modern community who came here, the pioneers to build this place, their slogan was a pasuk from the book of Yirmiyahu, V'shavu banim ligvulam. The prophet Yirmiyahu told us the day will come when children will return to their borders. And for me to be able to say that I'm a ben hashav ligvulo, that I have the privilege of being one of those sons returning to their land, there's simply nothing that can compare to that. Thousands of years ago, Avram Avinu was commanded, Lech Lecha me'artzecha el ha'aretz asher areka, and he was promised, L'zaracha etenet ha'aretz hazot. Hashem told him to leave his land, and he promised him that his children would inherit this land. And it's happening right here, right now. It's a tremendous privilege to be a part of it. And anyone who has the opportunity to do so, it's worth more than anything in the world.
Wherever you go, I will go, having to follow my heart, riding the...
Shalom Aleichem. My name is Rabbi Asaf Bednarsh, and I made Aliyah with my family in 2004 from Brooklyn, New York, and we now live in Alon Shvut, a suburb of Yerushalayim. And I have the zchut, the tremendous opportunity to teach Torah in Eretz Yisrael at Yeshiva University's Israel Kollel in Bayit V'gan. In the beginning of Parshat Lech Lecha, we read, Vayomer Hashem el Avram, Lech Lecha me'artzecha mi'moladtecha mi'beis avicha el ha'aretz asher areka. Hashem says to Avram, leave your household, your birthplace, leave your family, go to Eretz Yisrael, to the land I will show you. And Hashem promises to make him a great nation and through him to bless the entire world, a project which we, his descendants, are still continuing to this day. The Ramban, and following him, many of the Mefarshim, ask, why Vayomer Hashem el Avram Lech Lecha? Why did Hashem tell Avram, leave your home, your birthplace, go to the land of Canaan? The Torah, until now, in Parshat Bereshit and Noach, told us nothing substantive about the righteousness of Avram, about the accomplishments of Avram. Why did Hashem pick Avraham? From the Pshuto Shemakra, the simple language of the Chumash, makes it sound like Hashem picked Avram. He picked his name from a hat out of the clear blue and told him, here's a golden opportunity. Go to Eretz Yisrael and you will be father of the Jewish people. Why Avram? Why didn't anyone else get that opportunity? The Ramban has one answer. The Maharal in his Netzach Yisrael has another very, very important answer. But the Sfas Emes right here in this week's Parsha gives a fascinating, new, and challenging answer. He says perhaps the premise of the question was an unwarranted assumption. The Sfas Emes suggests that maybe Hashem told everyone, Lech lecha me'artzecha mi'uladcha mi'beis avicha. Hashem gave every single person in the world the opportunity, if he was willing to leave his comfort zone, to leave his homeland, to leave his family, to be distant from his familiar surroundings, and to move to Eretz Yisrael and to live there in service of Hashem, anyone could have been the father of the Jewish people. The difference is that Avram heard the offer. Avram seized the opportunity. Avram heard Hashem giving him this opportunity and took advantage of it, while others ignored the message. And Avram, who chose to listen to the message, is our forefather, is the forefather of the Jewish people. Nowadays, we live in a time where, according to the Sfas Emes, we are all faced with the same choice that Avram and his contemporaries were faced with. The message is there loud and clear for all of us to hear. Hashem is saying, Lech lecha me'artzecha mi'uladcha mi'beis avicha. The Chumash tells us, V'hotzeitzi v'hitzalti v'ga'alti v'lakachti. From the very beginning, our birth as a nation, from the very first Pesach Seder, Hashem told us, I will redeem you from Eretz Mitzrayim. I will take you from Galut to Geula. Why? Ve'heveiti etchem el haaretz. So I can bring you to Eretz Yisrael. For 40 years in the desert, the Jews remembered that all Hashem wanted of them was to have faith and come to Eretz Yisrael. You can't go more than a parak or two in the Torah without encountering Eretz Yisrael, the homeland of the Jewish people, the place where Hashem wanted us to live as the Jewish people, based on the Torah. We know that the poskim argue whether Yishuv Haaretz, settling Eretz Yisrael, is a mitzvah aseh d'oraita. Is that counted as one of the 248 biblical positive commandments or not? The Ramban counts it as one of the commandments. The Rambam, Maimonides, does not. But the very same Rambam, who does not count settling in the land of Israel as one of the 248 commandments, paskins, a halacha, not a drush, not sermonizing, not homiletics. The Rambam paskins, la halacha, that it is better to live in a city populated by Gentiles. It is better to live in a city full of pagan temples, in a pagan city in Eretz Yisrael, than in a Jewish city, in a frum city, in Chutz La'aretz. At one time, perhaps that was the choice our ancestors had. They could stay in their Jewish communities with good schools for their kids, with shuls, with opportunities for Jewish life, or they could make a long, perilous journey. Try to make it to Eretz Yisrael in the middle of a crusade, in the middle of a conquest, a place inhabited by people who are not friendly and welcoming to us, and certainly not friendly and welcoming to our Torah lifestyle. And even so, the Rambam paskins that it's better to go to Eretz Yisrael and live in the shadows of the churches and the pagan temples than to remain comfortable in Chutz La'aretz. But now, in our generation, we have the tremendous zechut that Hashem sent us a message. He said, Lech Lecha. He said, maybe that's a little too tough. Now, coming to Eretz Yisrael is an 11-hour flight. Settling here, no one said it was easy. There are challenges. Everything important in life is difficult, but it's not what it once was. The klitah here, absorption in Israel, is not what it once was. And certainly we don't have to live in a city full of Ovdei Avodah Zarah, of pagan worshippers. We can come to Eretz Yisrael and live. We can live in a city full of Israeli Jews. We can live in a city with many American Jews, wherever we feel comfortable. We can find jobs here. Maybe they pay as much as they do in America. Maybe they pay a little less than they do in America. We can find schools for our kids. And we can live here as part of the Jewish people in their homeland. We have the opportunity, and it's not easy, but it's not as hard as it once was. We have the opportunity to move here, to bring up our kids, so that my kids, the language they speak in the street, the language they speak in school, is Lashon HaKodesh, is the language of the Tanakh, is the language that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke, that Yoshua spoke, that David HaMelech spoke. When they learn Chumash in their native tongue in school, they learned about Ma'aras HaMachpelah, the burial place of our Avot V'Imahot. That's someplace which is a 20-minute drive from our house. When they finish learning Sefer Breshit in school, the school trip will take them to Ma'aras HaMachpelah to celebrate their Siyum at the place where it all happened. When they walk outside their house, they're looking around at the path Avram took on his way to the Akedah, at the places where Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and then David HaMelech in the beginning of his career shepherded their sheep. And when they finish Sefer Shemos and learn about the Mishkan, they'll take a class trip to the Kotel, which is someplace they visit all the time, which is almost the next town over. Because for kids growing up here, the Chumash, the Tanakh, is not a history book. It's where we live. We are living what it says in the Chumash. We're speaking the language of the Chumash. We're living in a state, in a country, where the legal holidays aren't Christmas and New Year's, where the legal holidays are Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We're living the way Hashem intended us to live. A mere 64 and a half years ago, Hashem gave us a tremendous, tremendous gift of Medinat Yisrael. But it wasn't a gift. It was a calling. That was Hashem's way of saying, Lech lecha me'artzecha mi'oladtecha mi'beis avicha. It's time. It's all here. It's waiting for you. The time has come to come back here and live in our homeland. And it's up to us whether we hear that message like Avram or ignore that message. And Eretz Yisrael, the message of Aliyah, is not just about me and my family. When my wife and I decided we were going to make Aliyah, we were going to raise our kids and build our home in this land, we weren't only thinking about ourselves, about what kind of society and culture our kids would grow up in, but we're thinking about the Jewish people. From what I've heard, a popular pastime nowadays is to debate whether or not we should say Reishit Tzmichat Ge'ulateinu every Shabbat in a Tefillah L'Shlom HaMedina. There are those who insist Reishit Tzmichat Ge'ulateinu. We know we must declare that this state, the historical era in which we live, is the beginning of the ultimate Ge'ula, is the first step towards Mashiach. And then there are those on the other side who say no. We must declare that this state is not a step towards Mashiach. Perhaps it's a step away, perhaps it is a step into nowhere in particular, but it is not Reishit Tzmichat Ge'ulateinu. The Talmidim of the Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik Zatzal, point out that both sides are wrong. According to the Hashkaf of the Torah, we don't know Hashem's plan. We don't know what Hashem has in store for us. We don't know what the future will bring. We don't know what is Reishit Tzmichat Gulateinu and what isn't. Then what do we know? They explain that we know one thing, that whether or not this state, this era, whether or not today is Reishit Tzmichat Gulateinu, doesn't depend on Hashem. It depends on us. Chazal tell us that the Jewish people were faced with a similar moment in history before. In the days of Ezra, Ezra. In the days of Ezra, there was potential for the Mashiach, for the ultimate Geula, for the final Beit HaMikdash to be built, for the world to be brought to the state of perfection, which Hashem intended for it. Or there was opportunity for an effort. Maybe they'd build a Mikdash, it would last a couple hundred years here or there, be overrun once or twice. What did that depend on? Chazal Darshan, for a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, that it depended on us. Im delasi, im chomahi. If a couple of thousand stragglers follow Ezra up to Eretz Yisrael, which is what happened, then they would build something, they would accomplish something. But it would not be the beginning of the Geula. If all the Jewish people had gotten up, left their homes behind, which is difficult, left their jobs behind, which is difficult, left their familiar surroundings behind, and come to Eretz Yisrael with Ezra, that would have been the end of history. That would have been Reishit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Whether or not we are living in the era of Reishit Tzmichat Geulatenu is not a matter for debate, is not a matter for philosophical argumentation. It depends on our actions. If we come here, if we make it a beginning, then out of it will flourish the Geula. If we ignore it, if we don't hear the voice, if we ignore the message, then I don't know what will happen. When my wife and I got married, we thought, where do we want to raise our family? And what's our role in the Jewish people? Are we standing by? Are we going to watch history happen and then complain that it didn't work out the way we wanted? Or are we going to do something? Are we going to be part of history? Hashem told us in the Navi that the Geula comes as one family moves and another family hear Hashem's voice and come back to Eretz Yisrael and start the Reishit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Ultimately, like everything in history, from Avram Avinu, through the Meraglim, through Bayit Rishon and Bayit Sheni to this very day, history is not something that we're supposed to be watching, commenting on, complaining about. History is something we're supposed to be making. It's our job to make history. And every Jew who makes the sacrifice, and it's certainly a sacrifice, he misses his family, he misses his lifestyle. It's hard adjusting to new surroundings. But every Jew who makes the sacrifice and comes to Eretz Yisrael finds for themselves and their family that the sacrifice was well worth it and pays off. And the reward of being able to bring up children and bring up a family in Eretz Yisrael outweighs any cost of the sacrifice and becomes a subject making history instead of watching it from the sidelines. And if every Jew who opened up a chumash, who went to shul on Parshat Lech Lecha, and heard Hashem tell Avram, Lech Lecha el haaretz asher areka, opened up their ears to hear the message and started planning to move to Eretz Yisrael, that would certainly bring about the Reishit Tzmichat Gulatenu. If every Jew, instead of complaining about all the things that are difficult in Eretz Yisrael, came here and worked on them, made them better and contributed, and made this country a stronger place economically, a stronger society religiously, a more idealistic community, then from there would certainly flourish the Geula. And we would merit to see the final realization of Hashem's promise to Avraham, Ve'escha l'goy gadol, va'avarecha, va'gadlo shemecha, ve'yeh bracha. May we see soon the blessing that Hashem promised to Avraham, as we are a great nation in Eretz Yisrael, and may we become greater and greater as the Jews are melukatim echad echad beit Yisrael, as one by one we return home from the Galut in time for the arrival of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheira v'yameinu.
Just to breathe in the air, you'll find me in Israel. In Israel.
Hey, hello. My name's Heather Gaub. I'm originally from Colorado and Ohio, and I've been in Israel for the past 19 years. About 6 of them in a yeshuv north of Jerusalem called Eli, and then the past 13 years here in Alon Shvut. But growing up, actually Aliyah was never part of my plan. It just became part of my life relatively late in my life. It started in the summer of 1990 when I was on the Livnot Ulihipanot program in Tzfat. And it's a program that really caters to Jewish youth with a very little Jewish background, and they kind of give you a balanced program with Jewish studies and community service and a love of the land. Like, they took us on Tilim all over Israel, trying to help us find some kind of a bond or some kind of connection to being in Israel. And so on that program, something happened, that some seeds were planted, and I also met my future husband on the program. At the time we were just friends, but we parted, promising to stay in touch. So upon leaving the program, I ended up finishing college and then going into the Peace Corps in Rwanda. I was 2 years working in the health field in the middle of Africa, surrounded by churches and really nothing Jewish. And ironically, being so cut off from a Jewish community, like whatever planted and leave notes started to sprout, because it made me really miss being in a Jewish community. It made me really appreciate what it could be like living in my own country. And while I was there, I had stayed in touch with the man I met on Leave Note, Joe. And he had come to Israel and was learning in Efrat, in a learning program in Efrat. And he was sending me letters. Not email, there was no email. It was all snail mail, and it took a month for me to get a letter from him and a month for him to get my letter, so 2 months in between our correspondence. And he had sent me a humash, and he became my long-distance chavuta. He would write down what he was learning in class, and he would ask me to look up the verses in the humash, the Torah, and then I would think about it, then I would read on about what he had to say. So that went on for a little while, and we were also talking about Israel and our future families and what would I do after the Peace Corps, kind of subtly coming closer together until we started talking about actually, being serious, maybe really getting together seriously and thinking about raising a family. And before I know it, he's flying out to Africa to meet me. This was about the time that things in Rwanda were heating up and we were forced to leave because war was starting. And he had met me at an airport in Nairobi and brought me back to Israel just in time for Pesach. So and after that I went to the Israelite program. And it was while in the Israelite program, we're also being back in Israel and the whole feel of it, we became engaged. And that all part came together really nicely. And we decided that yeah, we're going to get married and we have to live in Israel. But first, a lot of people, they make this plan, right? The 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan. So we decided a 2-year plan. We got married a few months later, September 1993, and we lived in Elizabeth, New Jersey. So we're thinking, okay, we'll spend 2 years. Joe will finish his degree. I'll find some work and then we'll move. But God had other plans for us, which is a good thing because just 3 months after moving to Elizabeth, we suddenly met up with a friend from Israel who was visiting, and we asked him, how are things in Israel? And he told us, you have to come now. Now is the time to come to Israel. They just signed the Oslo Accords, and we need more Jewish families in Israel. Please come. And we talked about it and said, he's right. Israel needs us. What are we doing in America? Why should we struggle in America when we can go to Israel and really make a good life for ourselves and be at a place where we're really needed? So we did it within a month, pretty much. I mean, that was in November. By February 1st, we had our lift together and we were on the plane to Israel. So it shows you that when you really want to do something, you can make it happen quickly. You don't have to keep putting off and putting off. And so we ended up moving to Lech because we knew had friends there. And we lived with friends for 3 months until a caravan became available. And then we moved into the caravan, and a few months later, my first child was born. And we ended up buying a house, really putting our roots down. And then we decided after 6 years that we really would like to try living in the Judean hills. We were in the Shomron, and now we thought we'd like to, by that time we had 3 children, we'd like to live in the Judean hills. So also, we managed to find a place in Lech, which was not easy at that point. That was like 13 years ago. And since then, we lived in a few residences here, and we were able to, with God's help, get our own plot of land and build our own house. My husband built a lot of it on his own. And now we have 5 children. And my husband has his own business, and we live, our backyard is Derech Avot, which is the path of the patriarchs. Like, we go out of our house and we have a horse, so we can actually ride a horse down on the paths that Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov had traveled between Hebron and Jerusalem. And it's just like amazing that this happened. And people think they're put off by, oh, it's too hard to live in Israel, it's too struggle, what if I don't have a job? We didn't have a job when we came, but it takes a lot of emunah. And now, 19 years later, since we met Aliyah, my husband has his own business and a lot of workers. And thank God, and we're raising a family and we're doing good, Baruch Hashem. Right, so I'd like to encourage anyone out there who has their doubts, who has that fear of the unknown. Oh, what will happen if I get to Israel? What if it doesn't work out? What if the schools don't work out? What if I don't get the job? I mean, we've learned, if you learn from our story, is that sometimes you just go on the faith that you're meant to be in Israel, and Hashem will help everything come into place. It may not happen in the first month or the second month or third month, but if you're really determined to be here and you really feel you're meant to be here, then Hashem will make sure that your needs are provided for, and you'll feel like you really do. You'll finally find a way to call this place home and feel like it really is your home.
So shalom to everybody. My name is Pam Shirapaz, originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. I grew up in a Orthodox, my father was Orthodox, my mother wasn't, but we really grew up with a very Zionistic family, with a love of Eretz Israel, and the dream of one day fulfilling the dream of 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and coming on Aliyah. And when I met my husband, Alan, Pats, we now are Paz, but he was Pats, from Middelburg, and he belonged to B'nai Kiva. And of course, this dream of making Aliyah was really the ideology and the love of Eretz Israel was part of B'nai Kiva. So it seemed the right and obvious thing to do. And after our first son, Raphael Jonathan, was born, he actually had his Brit on the day of Entebbe. And when he got a little older and we had to already plan about getting a bigger home or buying or renting, I said to my husband, I think the time has come for us to make the big move and to come and live in Eretz Israel. I have one thing to add, that I'd never ever visited Israel before I made Aliyah. but I always felt that this was the right place for Jews to be. I did nursing and midwifery, and I never understood when I met older Jews why they were living in the diaspora, and I just felt it was like part of my shlichut, part of a mission, to be able to fulfill this dream and come and live here. So my husband Alan and me and my son Rafi, he was 7 months at the time, we left South Africa in 1977 in February, and we came to live in the Gush Etzion. I am now standing under the oak tree called the Alon, centered here in the middle of Gush Etzion. It is 600 years old, and it symbolizes the settlement of the Jews here in Gush Etzion. In 1948, when the Gush fell, it was the members of Kfar Etzion, the kibbutz, would come and they would stand on a hill called Nes Harim and look down at the Gush and see the oak, this lone oak, the Alon, and they would say, Nashuva Rabaita, we will come back to Gush Etzion. And they never ever forgot that one day they would return to this beautiful land, and this oak tree symbolized their hope and dream to come back. And in 1967, when the area was liberated, this came true, and the residents that lived in the kibbutzim before returned with their children. And today we have 4 generations living here in Gush Etzion. Alon Shvut was one of the first settlements. It was started with the yeshiva Har Etzion, and the yeshiva boys got married, and then they built homes here, and then Alon Shvut expanded, and this was part of our B'nai Akiva plan, was to come and settle the Gush. So we started in a kibbutz Rosh Tzurim, and we did an Ulpan there, stayed there for a year, and then we came to join other South Africans who had made Aliyah and were living in Alon Shvut at the time. So this dream that these pioneers started in Kfar Etzion and to build up in the Judean hills became a ideological for motivation and force for all of us. And so we came here, and of course then after Efrat was built, Elazar was here before, and Neve Daniel, and all the Yeshuvim that comprise of Gush Etzion. And we have lived here for 35 years, and it is a real and true zchut, privilege to be a link in this chain. The Gush Etzion is situated south of Jerusalem. I always tell people that I live halfway between Yerushalayim and Hebron. And Hebron is Chibur, is the connection with our forefathers who are buried there, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And of course with our Imaot, Sarah, Rivka, and Leah. And often I feel very connected that, we can go and visit Hebron and visit our mothers and fathers. And I don't know any other nation that has 4,000 years of history and can go and visit the descendants that are buried so close to us. And I feel it's a very big, enormous, huge privilege to be able to live here. I have in my back garden ruins dating back to the Second Temple period, when the Jews lived in this area and would walk to the Temple Mount for the 3 festivals, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. And I really feel that we are linked in this chain of history, and it's an ongoing process. And my message to everyone is that this is our homeland. It was given to us by Hashem, and Avraham Avinu left his home, Lech, Lecha, and he spread God's love and light, and he came to Eretz Israel, and we really feel the Shekhinah is with us. And yes, things can get difficult. It's not easy. Many young people have given their lives for Eretz Israel, and so we even feel, with all the hardships that have been entailed, with all the dreams of millions of Jews who never made it here, yes, we have a special mission to live here and and get involved and helping in the chesed and just bringing up our families, and it's an enormous chut, and I just invite everybody to come and join us and to live this beautiful life that we live in Eretz Israel.
Hi, my name is Aliyah. I'm 13 years old. I was born in New York, and I moved 5 years ago to Alon Shvut, Gush Etzion. And I want to say that you say it 3 times a day, Tikah b'shofar, Gadol lecheutenu, Sanes lekabetz galeutenu, V'kabtzinu yachad me'ira me'arba kanfot kol haaretz le'artzenu. That everyone should move here, and it'll make the Geula come faster. And I really like it here.
Hello, my name is Yael. I'm 11 years old. I'm very happy that my parents decided to move here because this is the land that Hashem promised us. And I know that every forum you take in this land, you get a mitzvah, so yeah.
Hello, my name is Mordechai. I was born in Monsey. I moved here 5 years ago. They're saying that you guys should move to Israel, like you say almost every single day when you bench. You say the Lecha Hashem Elokeinu Asher Chata Lavotenu Eretz Chanda Tomer Chava. That you guys are saying thank you for this land, not America or any other lands.
Hello, my name is Aliyah and I'm 8 years old. I just wanted to tell you in the Parshat Lech Lecha, Hashem told to Avram Avinu to come to Israel, and that's what I think you should do too.
We love Israel!
We're sure you will too.
Please come join us. Israel is our home.
Wherever you go, I will go. Having to follow my heart, riding the wings that will carry me home. Wherever you live, I will live. If just to breathe in the air, you'll find me in Israel. In Israel. Lift up my eyes to see the day of plowshares from our swords. A time to mend, a time to gather stones, a time for peace in Israel. Let me hear the voice of bride and groom, of laughter in the streets. Answer the prayers of our children, so they need not fear in Israel. Wherever